of electricity continues to keep many Filipino communities from achieving their potential for development. However, one group hopes to turn things around by taking their project on the road. Its target is to provide 3.5 million homes across the country with safe, reliable, and sustainable energy. Here's a look.
At least 20 million Filipinos live without electricity, without the energy needed to power communities. In a bid to help reverse the situation, 3 patriots are on one mission: to Ride for Light, an inter-island motorcycle ride across the Philippine archipelago in 19 days. The project seeks to help electrify all isolated communities in the country through solar energy. On April 16, riders led by Frenchman Philippe Saubier will set out on a 6,600-kilometer motorcycle adventure ride from Manila to Pagudpud, Zamboanga, and back to conduct social and ecological missions in approximately 40 remote communities, including protected areas and indigenous communities. The project hopes to bring in portable solar home systems to each village and give thousands of high school students access to internet connection. This mission is just the start. Solar Energy Foundation Philippines will also hike and sail to reach out to the tens of thousands of isolated off-grid villages.
And joining us on Hot Copy to talk about their project Ride for Light 2011, let's welcome Jim Ayala, Chairman of Solar Energy Foundation Philippines, and Philippe Saubier, a Solar Energy Foundation board member who will lead the marathon. Good day, gentlemen.
Good morning, TJ.
Thank you for joining us. Well, before we get into the nitty-gritty details of the ride and some of the gadgets you brought with us here, tell us about how you found out about this problem. I didn't realize how big of a problem it is when I was reading the materials you guys sent over. 1 out of 4 Filipinos do not have electricity.
That's correct, TJ. Globally, it's actually a very large problem as well. There are 1.8 billion people in the world that have no electricity.
Okay.
So in the Philippines, given that we have mountains, we have islands, that problem is quite difficult. It doesn't make sense for us to connect them to the grid because it's too expensive.
It's too expensive. It's just not feasible for the electricity providers.
It's not feasible. You think about spending 1 million pesos to connect one house, which will only pay 100 pesos per month.
But won't it make up for the larger picture even if they will lose money specifically for that investment?
Well, the problem is the investments are just so large,
it's too big.
And it's hard for us to afford it as a relatively poor country.
All right.
But I think there's hope, TJ, because if you think about this, it's a little bit like the telephone industry. Before you had landline only.
Right,
now you have wireless.
Right. Right.
In electricity, we only have the grid, but increasingly with the solar technology, it's like wireless for electricity.
Correct. But these things that both of you are doing, and then the rest of the group, this is your advocacy, right? I mean, it's not your day job, really. But tell us how you found out about it and why it struck a chord with you. Philip, tell me why this is something dear to your heart that makes it make you move mountains and drive around 7,000 islands.
In my case, I help a project which electrified 100,000 people in Masbate.
Okay.
Also using motorcycles to reach out, basically. And I realized how electricity is important for development. And basically, that was a project we've started and then when I met Jimmy, we studied how to make that a sustainable system to provide electricity for rural Filipino and still using motorcycles as a delivery mechanism. So that campaign is also part of that and hopefully enlist others to join us.
What was the area like? Why the need for motorcycles then as well?
Just to reach the places, the different barangays, because they were all being electrified at the same time and to move around. There was no other way than to use motorcycles because they are very cheap, very reliable, and basically cost efficient as well.
Okay. Jim, in your part, when you found out about this statistic, what was your initial reaction? And I mean, what struck you right away? Why did you want to get involved?
Well, I think at the end of the day, my history and my focus has always been corporate. And at corporate, you're really focusing on making money for your shareholders. But when you realize that our Filipino brethren are suffering and are not able to get out of poverty, but with a little bit of help that they'll be able to do that, I felt I have to do something about it. So in fact, both Philip and I are focusing 100% of our energies doing this.
So tell us what kind of areas we're looking at here that don't have electricity. I'm imagining small islands,
Yes.
you know,
Yeah.
offshore from major metropolises, but they just really can't be reached out. Mountainous areas. I mean, what are they like? And what are the people they're like right now? Are they like really tribes people, or?
Well, it depends on where you are. So if you're up in the mountains, many times you do have the Lumads. You know, these are the indigenous groups. I mean, the Ifugaos, of course, people like that. In the islands, especially these remote islands, you have a lot of fishing villages. Inland, we have a lot of small farmers, coconut farmers, for example, who are far away from the main roads. And of course, in the south, we have the Bangsamoro communities in Tawi-Tawi, in Holo, in those areas, as well as Zamboanga, which we will be going, which is the first time I think that anyone has gone, you know, from Manila to Pagudpud down to Zamboanga and back.
And what are their lifestyles like? You were telling me off the air before we got on air, Philip, that for them the day ends when the sun sets, and pretty much that's it. It ends their productivity, right?
Yeah, the day is very short without electricity, and the possibilities are very narrow as well, because you cannot choose to do what you want when you want it. You have to follow the daylight.
Right.
The quality of life is very low. Studying is not possible. Sometimes the parents cannot afford the kerosene. There's no communication. Phones are low bat. So the life is very difficult and very limiting, basically. So that's why just a little bit of electricity and light and communication can actually be enough to get out of poverty.
What is it for them that they use right now? I mean, you mentioned already one that's kerosene as well. What are the other things? Do they just literally like live with candles as well, and the dangers of it?
Yes, well, definitely for lighting, it's mainly either kerosene or candles or firewood. So there are dangers both with respect to burning, but it's also a big health hazard.
Right.
Inhaling all of that smoke.
Of course.
When they move around outside, they bring flashlights, and so they're using dry cell batteries.
Okay.
They're using the batteries also for their radios. Now, the problem with the battery is that the cost of the electricity in a battery is 1,000 times the cost of electricity from Meralco. So the poorest people are paying 1,000 times more for their electricity.
The irony of it all, yeah.
Yes. And then, of course, most of them, even though they don't have electricity, have cell phones.
Right.
But how do they charge their cell phone?
Right.
They have to go to town and they pay when they charge it.
Wow.
So when you add all of that together, a typical household will spend on energy anywhere from 500 to 1,000 pesos per month.
Wow.
So if you think of 1,000 pesos for 10 years, that's 120,000 pesos. So with that, you could have spent 4,000 pesos and replaced all of that.
Right.
They would have saved 115,000, which could have gone to a bangka, a sari-sari store,
Right.
the school, a house, many
right.
things.
All right. So basically, these are people who have never really experienced a home with ordinary electricity, and as your foundation says it, they've never seen the light. And that's how it is. I mean, what was it? So when you did your work in Masbate, and you said you helped about 100,000 people or 100,000 homes?
Yeah, no, 100,000 people. That's
all right.
about 18,000.
What was the reaction like when they finally got regular, sustainable, source of electricity? I mean, how did life change?
I think the reward was the smile.
The smile.
They really changed life. Very. I mean, you literally push the button, right, and
It's
then
like
life looks brighter.
Literally a flick of the switch.
Yeah, there is a way forward. So it's very gratifying actually.
And how have they progressed since then? I can imagine significantly for the students, it makes a big deal that they can now study at night and possibly even have some form of internet as well.
Yeah, there is a clear correlation between academic performance and electricity, availability of electricity. In Masbate, we actually also connected high schools to internet using the GILAS program, because that's also a way to put Filipino students at par with international ones. And that also helps a lot for the academic performance of Filipino pupils and students.
All right. Now, when I first heard about your advocacy, the first thing that came to mind was putting up a giant solar, panel in a community that will, electrify the community. But offhand, I was thinking that's going to be expensive.
Yes.
Right, and it still is. I mean, although it's gone down in the last few years, but it's still very expensive to purchase these solar panels and to maintain them and to run them, the whole setup. But what you have apparently is a very inexpensive way of providing each home some form of light and electricity, right? So you can tell us
That's
about
correct.
some of the gadgets you brought with us today.
Well, what we've got is a system, portable home system, which provides lighting. So we've got 3 settings: low, medium, high.
Okay.
And on this one, on low, this will give you 100 hours on one charge.
Wow, okay.
On high, you can get 9 hours. Now, normal evening, they go to bed at around, I mean, the light gets down at 6,
Yeah.
they go to bed at 9, so they need 3 or 4 hours per night.
Okay.
So this one gives you at
More
least
than
3
enough.
days, yeah,
For a full charge.
for a full
Okay.
charge. So when they go outside, they, of course, you need light as a flashlight.
Correct.
But when you go home, you actually hang it up on the ceiling so that you have better lighting.
Okay.
Right? And so when you do that, we actually have a switch, which Philip is holding here. You plug the switch over here on the
Oh,
other side.
syempre kasi it's
Yeah,
hanging
it's
up
high,
and
it's
you can't
hanging,
reach
it's
it.
not
It's a
convenient.
switch.
Yeah.
Cool.
And
All right.
so then you press the switch, you can do it.
There you
Now,
go.
that's for the lighting part,
Yeah.
which is very useful indoors and outdoors. Now, the other thing is, ironically, they all have cell phones, but they don't have a way to charge it.
That's right.
So what we can do is we can use this USB adapter. It comes with all sorts of tips. This is the one for the iPad. Maybe
Okay.
we can
Yeah, we can just try it out
just try it on your
to
phone
prove
here.
that it charges.
Let's see, make sure it works.
And there you go. It's charging.
Okay, so
All
that's
right.
10.
we
That's
can charge
10
too.
pesos, please.
Okay.
No, because that's what they use.
Palista muna, sir.
That's what they used to pay. So now this can
They
actually
pay
earn
10
them
pesos per
livelihood.
charge.
Yeah.
Wow.
So imagine 10 pesos per day. That's already 300 pesos per month. You know, if your neighbors
Yeah.
charge with you.
Wow.
If you use this, let's say for fishing, you have the fishermen spend 1 liter per night for their gasera. Because you know how they put the light close to the water to
Right.
attract the fish.
Right,
So you can use this instead.
That's waterproof? Or
This particular one is not. We have a slightly bigger one, which is water resistant.
Okay.
This one is shockproof.
Okay.
Very, very
So
sturdy.
it's durable. It's very
Yeah.
durable.
Pangharabas. is what
Pangharabas
they say.
talaga, so they say.
So
Okay.
very, very sturdy. They last. They're rated for 20 years.
All right.
So the light itself will last for 20 years. So if you spend 1 liter of kerosene per night fishing, that's 50 pesos per night. That's 1,500 pesos.
Wow.
So all of that, just use one of these.
And one of those will cost how much?
This one costs to the communities that we're selling to about 2,800.
All right. And you sell it, that's going to be sold to them at a discounted price, or will the foundation be eventually giving them away for free?
Well, that 2,800 is a market price for
Okay.
them. So
Okay.
what we want is, if we're going to cover everyone, there has to be enough profit in the system so that we can invest.
All right.
What the foundation does and what donations help with is to put the first set in the village.
Okay.
And what we do is we actually don't give it to individual people because then it'll stop there.
Right.
We actually work with our community partners and they create a facility, like a community facility of lanterns. It's
Okay.
like a library.
Okay.
So somebody is taking care of it, somebody
Alright.
knows how to maintain it, knows
Okay.
how to educate people on how
Yep.
to use it.
Okay.
And then people come and they'll spend 5 or 10 pesos per day to rent the lanterns.
To rent.
Yeah. So when
Okay,
they
cool.
at the next day they bring it back empty, pay 10 pesos, you get a new one.
Okay.
Right. So from
That's fully
there-
charged already.
Fully charged
Okay,
already. So from
alright.
there, there's money coming into
Yeah.
the system, and then you can expand.
Right.
Yeah, and you have a community partner who can take care of it and
Okay.
can train and educate people, and importantly maintain it
Right.
when things break down.
And eventually, if they want to, they can purchase it at that price. You said 2,800
That's right.
pesos. And
Yeah.
and I mean, they bought. Some of them have cell phones. That's the cost of the. Pretty much, that's the cost of an entry-level cell phone, about 2,000 pesos, right?
Correct. And what our partners do is they actually give them financing.
I was about to say, meron ba yung
Yes,
hulugan?
may hulugan
Yeah,
yan.
may hulugan.
Right,
Okay.
so you might pay, let's say, 150 pesos per week. That might be 600 pesos per month.
Yep.
But remember, they're spending already 1,000.
Correct, yeah.
So they'll still save 400 pesos per month, even though they're paying for
Right,
this.
right.
And then after 6 months, bayad na, libre na yung kuryente.
Wow.
Right. But I think for us, what we find the most important is not really just the financial, it's the sense of empowerment. Can you imagine